Hey everybody, welcome back to another movie review. Hope you guys been enjoying the content channel as of late. Just came back from the theater, actually about, I want to say about an hour ago, about an hour ago. I just went to get my brother from school, and we are, or at least I am now going to be doing this review. Sorry, I just haven't had lunch yet, and just a little fuzzy. So after this, I'm going to have some lunch, But the film that we're going to be talking about today is The Smashing Machine, which was written and directed by Benny Safdie, who, of course, is one of two of the Safdie brothers. Of course, Safdie brothers you guys may be familiar with from movies such as Good Time, which I enjoyed, and Uncut Gems, which I also really enjoyed. And since then, they have separated. They are now doing their own thing. His brother, I believe Josh Safdie, has a film coming out called Marty Supreme, which is starring Timothée Chalamet, also distributed through A24. Also edited the film as well, Benny Safdie, as well as co-produced, so he's got the whole 9 yards around this film. This stars Dwayne Johnson as Mark Kerr, who is a real-life MMA fighter, and the story goes as it takes place between the years 1997, I believe, all the way to 2000, as we see Mark Kerr, played by Dwayne Johnson, as he is building his way up through the ranks, and he is enamored with the sport, and he, as the film starts, talks about the aura, kind of the high that he gets from attention and from glory, and as we see very shortly in the film, the literal form of that definition that he showcases through the display of utilization of drugs, because he's using steroids or other incentives to get his performance up, and because of that, also he has never lost a fight. And one night, as he goes up against a more heavier opponent, he finds himself in a predicament where he actually loses his first fight. And the downfall from that is him separating from the drugs and finding his true self through that, seeing if he can actually be the person that he put up to be, the facade that he put up. Is he actually the man Mark Kerr, or is he something else entirely? And the film explores ultimately that of ambition, obsession, determination, and through the relationship that he has with a girl, Dawn, I believe, played by Emily Blunt, that of his also great toxicities as well. So in terms of how the film takes to the story, it is very observant in how it chooses to look through this narrative. And I think for better or worse, it has its good sides and its bad sides within that overall craftsmanship. To speak positively, though, I think that it does, within that behavior, it actually allows for a lot of the emotional states, because it's a film that operates a lot, or wishes to explore a lot, on psychology. Mainly, due with Mark Kerr, of how he is, dealing with things eternally, a lot about kind of like an identity crisis in some manner, and the whole masculine phrase, man on a mission type of spirit, where he is very much so about his objective and trying to prove himself, and he doesn't allow anything to really get in the way of that. And what and that because of that, there's also a great distance that is built within his intimacy, within relationships, specifically that of Emily Blunt's character. And because of that, you get a little bit of a flourishing with those emotional states, and for it to become rather expressive to some extent. And I do believe largely it is brought to fruition by these performances that are at the forefront with Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson. Emily Blunt especially, though, I think is a standout, because from the first frame of her, and when she just speaks, you immediately understand her character and how abusive how much of abuse she has taken, and how sensitive she is because of all the abuse that she has taken from Mark Kerr, as the film portrays that version of him, or at least that side of him. And when we get to Mark Kerr himself, Dwayne Johnson, I was pleasantly surprised by how commendable of a turn this performance was, because of course, Dwayne Johnson, for a lot of the spectacle and the action star that he has become, to see him do something like this, which is not completely out of his wheelhouse, because it is very much so in the world of wrestling, which is not far from what Dwayne Johnson, was born from. That is where his career started off of, was in wrestling. So it's not a complete challenge or a complete stretch, but in terms of his ability as a performer, I was pleasantly surprised by some scenes, because a lot of the performance has an undertone to it, which I really admired, which is this underlining sense of tension. Because as I illustrated, there is a toxicity to Mark Kerr that the film demonstrates throughout within the distance of his relationship to Emily Blunt, and to more or less to people as well, his distance with people as well. There's a narcissism to him, there's a bitterness to him, there's a stubbornness to him, and it is translated through the charisma that he puts up to get what he wants. He talks in a certain way that is talking not only down to you, but also in a way that feels welcoming. It's a false sense of security, ultimately. And I felt that Dwayne Johnson and the craftsmanship to bind with it provide that understanding and provide that layering. And it gives a little bit more color to that performance and props it up and gives it more life. And Dwayne Johnson is a part of that equation. So, it has those qualities, but I feel as though that those qualities are also a little bit scattered, because when we talk about the narrative itself, there are doubts when it comes within its focus. Because as I said, there are things that are going on within this overall context. There's Mark Kerr and his own journey within figuring out if he himself is who he believes himself to be. And then you have the other part of that story where we have Emily Blunt's character and her side of the story, where she is taking the brunt of the abuse, feeling isolated, and her own downfall as well. And I feel as though that the film is lacking in that real sense of focus, to where the weight of its thematic qualities can feel absolute and feel more impactful. Whereas for a large portion of its time, it's actually just observant, and in that you can kind of glean your own feelings and glean your own sense of investment, or glean your own sense of qualities within these people, and there may be a point to that as well, of how the film is choosing to explore in that way, and it is investing in terms of just that observant like quality. But within that rather floaty type of nature, I do sense also a lack of focus within the objective of its narrative. What is the point of the story of we are trying to get at? And I do believe it's largely to do with this obsessive nature that Mark Kerr as a person is taking on, and that identity crisis that he is possessing. But the weight of those thematic qualities, when it comes to looking at the other side of the equation with Emily Blunt's character, it almost feels as though Emily Blunt's character is, in fact, what Mark Kerr has saw, or at least as the film depicts it, as an obstacle, and not as a person, not someone who is actually dealing with real weight. If Emily Blunt's performance, that is one thing, but I feel as the craftsmanship, it is in service to Mark Kerr and not to, more or less, again, that the observant qualities that it is choosing to reside in. And the weight of of those qualities and the weight of some of those ideas, and perhaps so to do with the craftsmanship itself to some extent, just feel undermined and don't feel as elevated or feel as in depth or enriched or powered. And what you're left with is something that is good, but I do believe that it does possess the lack of focus, or an apparent lack of focus as you are watching the film. But I think that it has an interesting observant quality to it, and I think that it allows for certain things to flourish. Like I said, a lot of this psychological and because it does seem to be heavily focusing on psychology, and I think that it does allow for these things to flourish. But I feel that under other things, within development of characters, within understandings of people, fundamentally speaking, I feel can be left in the background, more or less. And there might be a point to that, especially in the context of who Mark Kerr as a person is. But I think that there's interesting discussions about toxic masculinity, about determination, about obsession to a cause, And I think that largely it is propped up by these two performances here. Emily Blunt especially, I think, does a very, very good job here. And as for Dwayne Johnson, in terms of what he is trying to do, in terms of the future that he is setting himself up with his career, potentially so, because this film unfortunately bombed real hard when it came out, being actually a low point in his career. I do hope that he charts his way through, and I hope that he keeps trying in this way, because it's an interesting start. I won't say it's a fantastic start or a great start, but an interesting start in this sort of fashion for his career. So generally, it's a good piece, but I do believe that it does lack that focus, but it does possess interesting performances at the center of it, and an investing craftsmanship that makes the whole journey worthwhile, if you ask me. So those are my thoughts on The Smashing Machine. I thought it was good. I thought Dwayne Johnson did a good job. I thought Emily Blunt did a great job. I just think that the story itself is a little scattershot in terms of your overall just viewership. It does feel that way. But you guys, what are your thoughts on The Smashing Machine? If you guys have seen it, I know a lot of you didn't based on the box office, but if you guys did, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, your guys' thoughts on Dwayne Johnson with his big dramatic turn here. I do want to see more of it. I am curious to see what else he does in the future. Believe he's working with the same director of another piece, and that, from what I heard, is actually going to be a lot more of a change of pace compared to something like this, which feels more comfort for him, but is a good starting point for what could be, for his career, at least of a change in pace. So, but let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.